Hey guys, it's Atheist for the Cause here, this time with an article review, and we're doing it on a unicorn political argument or article that it's actually quite good. It's on why liberals aren't as tolerant as they think, and it's quite a long article. I'm gonna focus mainly on the first half. If you want to check out the entire thing, I'll put it in the description, but I think the first half gets into the majority of will give you a good idea of what this is all about. So um, if you so it says in March, students at the Middlebury College disrupted a lecture by the conservative political scientist Charles Murray because they disagreed with some of his writings. Last month, the University of California, Berkeley canceled the lecture by the conservative Ann Coulter due to concerns for his safety, just 2 months after uninviting conservative Milo Yiannopoulos due to violent protests. Media outlets on the right have played up the incidents as evidence of rising closed-mindedness on the left. Well, I don't know if it's played up. I think it's evidence of. I mean, even if you take Berkeley's reasons, on face value, you mean to tell me them speaking is so dangerous for their own safety that not even police can keep them safe and the school has to uninvite them because the students are that dangerous? Yeah, that proves the point right there. So, I don't think playing up is the right word usage, but that's getting a little semantical. It says, for years, as conservatives who have been branded as intolerant, often for good reason, but conservatives will tell you liberals demonstrate their own intolerance using the strictures of political correctness as a weapon of oppression. I just love that line. Political correctness as a weapon of oppression. I've heard other people describe it as, weaponized political correctness. But you get the point. That's exactly what it is. People will, say you said the wrong word and then try to silence you because you said the wrong word, and they'll say anybody who disagrees with their values basically will face either attack or be deplatformed so they can't speak, and all of that is an intolerant move. So Spencer Greenberg, a mathematician who runs a website for improving decision making, found that the biggest predictor of voting for Trump after party affiliation was the rejection of political correctness. Trump's voters felt silenced. And that's exactly right. And that goes up to this point of liberals demonstrating intolerance through political correctness. And I have to say, I found it amusing that it took a mathematician to figure this point out. Ask any Trump voter pretty much, and they'll tell you political correctness was towards the top of the list of why they voted against or for Trump and against Hillary. So anyways, it goes, so who's right? Are conservatives more prejudiced than liberals or vice versa? Research over the years has shown that in the industrial nations, social conservatives and religious fundamentalists possess psychological traits, such as the valuing of conformity and the desire for certainty, that tend to predispose people toward prejudice. Meanwhile, liberals and the non-religious tend to be more open to new experiences, a trait associated with lower prejudice. So one might expect that whatever each group's own ideology, the conservatives and Christians should be inherently more discriminatory on the whole. But that's not so simple. Each group has been found to be equally prejudiced, according to this annual meeting of the Society of Personality and Social Psychology. While liberals might like to think of themselves as more open-minded, they are no more tolerant of people unlike them than their conservative counterparts are. When Mark Brandt, an American-trained psychologist now at Tilburg University in the Netherlands, first entered graduate school, he wondered why members of groups that espouse tolerance are so often intolerant. I actually have an idea on that. I mean, I know he's trying to scientifically prove it, but my first thought would be, you know, if you have to get into a group by being tolerant, you're creating, this definition is creating a circle, and it becomes, an us versus them mentality where you have to keep people out of that circle if they don't hold your values. And so almost definitionally, like, you have to if you let those intolerant people, or those people you perceive to be intolerant, into your group becomes more intolerant because it has more intolerant people in it. But at the same time, if you keep them out of your group, that can be seen as intolerant because you're not accepting of other people. So it's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't. But, and then when you start getting this us versus them mentality because you've created this group, you're going to get, and you're keeping them out of the group because you view them as negatively. So you're going to treat those people as worse than the people in your group who you view more positively. So I think that's really what it comes down to. But let's see what they scientifically show. It goes on and it says, on the other hand, liberals have a variety of personality traits and moral values that should protect them from expressing prejudice. On the other hand, people tend to express prejudice against people who do not share their values. So if you value open-mindedness, as liberals claim to do, and you see another group as prejudiced, might their perceived prejudice actually increase your prejudice against them? And I think that's exactly what I was saying there. And, I'm not going with, I read this article, now I'm giving you the end as I go through it. No, this is kind of I'm trying to throw in my thought process of how I was reading this article as I went as well. So, but, I think the article gets it right here. So, Brandt approached this question with Jeffrey Wetherill and Christina Reina in a 2013 paper published in Social Psychology and Personality Science. They asked a variety of Americans about their political ideologies, how much they valued traditionalism, egalitarianism, and self-reliance, and their feelings towards 8 groups of people. 4 of them liberal, feminists, atheists, leftist protesters, and pro-choice people, and 4 of them conservatives, supporters of the traditional family, religious fundamentalists, Tea Party protesters, and pro-life people. And I think those are fair. Like, you might get some, leftists that are pro-life, and you might get some rightists that are, pro-choice, but overall, I think they get these groups pretty accurate. Participants reported how much each group violated their core values and beliefs, and they assessed how much they supported discrimination towards that group by rating their agreement with statements such as feminists should not be allowed to make a speech in the city, and pro-life people deserve any harassment they receive. Those seem like perfectly reasonable questions to determine, a level of discriminant or intolerance, I should say. As predicted, conservatives were more discriminatory than liberals toward liberal groups, and liberals were more discriminatory than conservatives toward conservative groups. Yeah, so basically you're each group is more discriminatory towards the other group, towards the other side of the aisle, I should say. Conservatives' discrimination was driven by their higher traditionalism, which you would expect, and by liberal groups' apparent violation of their values. And I love that they threw in apparent violation because, that's when focusing on the left, and I'll just finish this. It says liberals' discrimination was driven by their lower traditionalism and by conservative groups' apparent violation of their values. So, sorry, the alarm's going off every Wednesday. But anyways, this comes down to I'll hold on a second. Sorry about that. But yeah, the apparent violation is very important because, just because you view someone as violating your values doesn't mean they actually do. And I think a lot of liberals or progressives need to realize that the people they're fighting against actually they often agree with. Like, a lot of people like me are called racist, but really I agree with progressives on tolerance of others and being inclusive and things like that. And in fact, I'm sure conservatives would also say that they agree with being open to others and not being racist and that kind of thing. So the racists of the world, the people who accept racism, the KKK members, the skinheads, I would say the Black Lives Matter groups, or if you don't want to say Black Lives Matter, if you want to say the black supremacists, like the Pan-Africans and those kind of extremists, then we all those are the very fringe. So over 90% of society, I would say, is anti-racism. But anyways, it says liberals were as discriminatory toward conservative groups as conservatives were toward liberal groups, and Brandt's findings have been echoed elsewhere. Independently and concurrently, the labs of John Chambers at St. Louis University and Jarrett Crawford at the College of New Jersey have also found approximately equal prejudice among conservatives and liberals. So if you're a liberal, don't think that your group is less liberal or less intolerant than the conservatives. If you're a conservative, same goes for you. It says, not only are conservatives unfairly maligned as more prejudiced than liberals, but religious fundamentalists are to some degree unfairly maligned as more prejudiced than atheists. And I'd agree with that to a large extent. It's always been argued, it seems, that the left is the more tolerant side. But I think the right needs to do a better job pushing back against that and actually making the left prove that, because, stating something doesn't make it so. And the science is against them, as this is showing. The studies that are coming out show an equal prejudice. And I think that could really hurt the Democratic Party if that, image that they weren't morally superior to the right changed. But it says, and while liberals and the non-religious sometimes defend themselves as being intolerant of intolerance, they can't claim this line as their own. In the study, bias on both ends was largely driven by seeing the opposing groups as limiting one's personal freedom. So both groups feel, liberals and conservatives both feel discriminated against, or in a sense that their personal freedoms are being limited. So that's really the end of where I wanted to go. There's all this other stuff. He gets into other examples, like this religious example, to continue to prove his point. And then he gets into some analyzing, but you can look at it if you want. So overall, liberals aren't as tolerant as they think. It's scientifically proven. That's a fact. You can take it to the bank. And I think the right needs to do a better job showing this. And amazingly, this is on the Politico. What is going on here? I think that the leaders of the left that need to win the next election, and the intellectuals that know that you can't just bury your head in the sand and pretend it was all because of racism, because if the intellectuals know that if you do that, you'll end up costing the next election as well. And so I think people like Matthew Hutson, I'm gonna state his name because he wrote this article, and it was such a good article. He is on Twitter. I tweeted to him, and he got back to me within the same day. So if you do message him nice things for the good article, he actually does read and respond. So I think supporting these liberals that are getting it, and hopefully they can lead a change in the Democratic Party, and letting them know that, hey, I know you're putting yourself out there, but we get it. We understand. Some of us who voted Trump or are on the right. I'm not on the right, but that we agree with you. You've got it right of what our views are. And so give them a message and be nice and let them know. So overall, liberals aren't as tolerant as they think. Have a good day, guys.